I never imagined a single sentence could change everything in my life, but that night proved me wrong. My name's Emily and I'm 32. I always thought I was in control of my marriage, my life, my choices. My husband, Ryan, had this calm, unshakable presence. Everyone always said he was the quiet strength in our relationship, the kind of man who would never falter no matter what. And I believed it. I truly did. But I didn't realize how quickly that belief could be shattered, and by whom I never saw coming. It started at a small gathering at a friend's house. We were celebrating a promotion, nothing formal, just a few close friends, a bit of wine and some laughter. I was in my element, laughing at jokes, exchanging stories, making light of our little domestic quirks. Ryan, as always, was quiet, standing slightly behind me, letting me take the spotlight. I smiled at him occasionally, thinking he enjoyed seeing me happy. That night, though, a guest named Michael had this mischievous look and asked, almost teasingly, "So, Emily, if someone wanted to take your husband away, could he stop them?" I laughed instantly. The question was ridiculous, and my mind didn't even think before my words tumbled out. "Oh, please," I said, laughing, nudging Ryan gently. "If anyone tried that, I'd probably be the one dragging him away. He wouldn't know what hit him." The room erupted into laughter, and I laughed harder, thinking it was harmless. But I didn't notice Ryan stiffen just slightly. His smile stayed, but there was a tension in his jaw, a subtle shift in his posture that made me pause for a moment. Only for a moment. I waved it off. He always had this ability to absorb my teasing, to let it roll off him. I thought this would be no different. Then he spoke, and the words stopped me cold. "Your wife is leaving with me," a voice said from the corner of the room. I turned, thinking it was some kind of continuation of the joke, some dramatic flair added by Michael, but it wasn't. It was him, the man I had laughed about in front of Ryan, standing there, calm but holding this certainty in his eyes that made my stomach drop. I nodded, almost reflexively, unsure if I understood correctly, unsure if my mind wanted to believe this was still a joke. The air grew heavy, laughter fading into an awkward silence. Ryan's face was unreadable, but I could feel his energy shift. I thought he would interject, maybe call out the audacity, maybe even crack a joke to diffuse the tension. But he didn't. He just stood there, silent, letting the words sink into the room, into my consciousness. I wanted to laugh it off, to pretend I didn't feel my pulse racing, but the joke had lost its flavor. It was sharp now, like broken glass pressed against my skin. I remember every detail, the way the light flickered over the kitchen counter where he had set his drink down, the faint hum of music in the background, the way my friends shifted their weight uncomfortably. I forced a smile, tried to make a casual remark, anything to defuse the tension. "Well, that's, dramatic," I said, hoping it would sound lighthearted. But Ryan didn't flinch. His eyes were steady, locked onto mine, and I realized he wasn't just listening. He was seeing. Really seeing. I tried to brush it off, to laugh a little louder, to act like the playful joke it was supposed to be. "You're imagining things, Ryan," I said, leaning into the humor, hoping he would follow. But he didn't. There was this stillness about him, a quiet resolve that made my heart skip a beat. He didn't argue, he didn't raise his voice, he didn't storm out. He simply watched me, and the weight of that gaze made every word I had ever spoken in jest feel like 1,000 tiny knives. The night continued in this strange, surreal rhythm. Ryan moved through the room with a calm that was almost eerie. He interacted with our friends as if nothing had happened, but I could sense the distance he had created. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sulking, it was something far more powerful, far more unsettling. He had drawn a line, invisible but unbreakable, and I had unknowingly crossed it. When it was time to leave, I expected the usual ride-home banter, the casual laughter, the teasing comments that had always defined our dynamic. But as we stepped out, Ryan grabbed his coat, his keys, and simply walked out to the car. No words, no glances back, nothing. My mouth opened, closed, opened again, trying to find something to say, some casual comment to bridge the sudden chasm between us. But there was nothing. Only the sound of his steps, calm and deliberate, echoing in my ears, leaving me in stunned silence. The drive home was quiet. My attempts at conversation were met with nods, short answers, the occasional hum that felt heavier than silence. I laughed nervously at one point, trying to make a joke about the party, about Michael's timing, about anything really. He didn't react. The calmness in his voice, the way he gripped the steering wheel just slightly tighter, made it clear this was no longer about a joke, no longer about playful teasing. This was something deeper, something final. When we arrived home, I expected him to come around, to brush it off in the morning, to act like the incident was trivial as he always had. But that night and the next morning, I realized the gravity of what had been said. Ryan had changed, not in his temperament but in his stance. His presence had shifted. He was no longer the man who would take my teasing in stride. He had decided, silently but irrevocably, that enough was enough. I stood there watching him walk inside, the door closing softly behind him, feeling a knot in my chest tighten. I had crossed a boundary I didn't even see, and now, in the quiet aftermath, I was left to face the consequences of my carelessness. The man I had underestimated, the one I thought would always be there, had quietly drawn the line, and I had no idea how to reclaim the ground I had lost.